We're going to jump in and talk about crucial conversations and what are crucial conversations. Why is it important? What does it matter? And what are crucial conversations? It took me a while to get through it, but it was probably one of the most powerful books that I've read. And I'm also going to borrow models from other references and my own experience, other things. Why is it important? What does it matter? And what are crucial conversations? The basic definition I can tell you is whenever stakes are high, emotions are strong, and opinions vary, crucial conversations become important. So what does that mean? That means whenever there's a conflict in your personal life, where you have a big disagreement with your spouse or with your child, somebody in your home or in your greater family, and the emotions are really strong, and it's important for you to resolve that. And your opinions vary. How do you deal with that? And most people, and this is a powerful thing that the author talks about, is most people resort to either silence or violence. Silence shows up, I'm just going to stay quiet and build resentment. Violence shows up in the sense of it could be emotional violence or it could be physical violence. That I'm either gonna take it out on the other person emotionally, or it could, in some cases, can resort to actual physical violence, which it does for human beings. So, and the other, and also on the business side, I mean, I literally last week I worked with a client who was dealing with very difficult partners that they had partnered with on a multifamily deal. I talked to another CEO, a CEO of a large company who was having challenges with one of his executive team members, and he didn't know how to approach that difficult conversation. And when you actually go, I'm going to reference Crucial Conversations book by Joseph Grenner quite a bit. When you go into the research of it, you find out that a lot of the growth and progress that is halted in organizations and families and in communities, like conflict between different nations, a lot of that is halted or it has gotten worse because most people don't know how to have crucial conversations. And it's something I'm learning as well. It's been one of those things for me to grow in. And actually, most of my coaching, if I were to say about 70% of my coaching, is focused on helping people develop the awareness for themselves to process certain things and have better conversations and connect better with other people. That would be about 70% of what I do as a coach. And then there are, of course, other things in the coaching process. So this is a really important topic. And so why don't most people have those crucial conversations when the stakes are high, which means that the resolution needs to be reached at for all of us? Because it's important to us. It's important for our relationships. It's important for our business. It's important for different parts of our life. Why don't we have those kind of conversations? Well, there are a few things to think about. It's a risky conversation. There's risk involved, there's fear involved, and there's lack of skill sets. So risk usually creates the fear. Most people are afraid to confront other people because they know that it's going to get escalated, whether it's a spouse or a business partner or a client or a collaborator of some kind. And usually the risk might be a deal lost, partnership lost, personal relationships, building tension at home and other areas. So those fears keep us from doing it. And most people don't stay away from the conversation. So again, they go back to either silent mode or violent mode. And I've done both of those. Neither of them are effective. So what we want to talk about today is how can we approach them in a more conscious and aware way. But today I want to direct that awareness towards how can you be aware around other people around you, whether those are your personal relationships, your business relationships with your clients, with your business partners, with your employees, anybody around you, community members. How can you resolve conflicts better? How can you deal with them in a better way? And again, this is very introductory. If you want if you want to go deeper into this, I encourage you to definitely, first of all, read. A lot of this is referenced back to Crucial Conversations book by Joseph Grenner and a couple other authors. The name doesn't come to mind, but you will find it. Lots of research behind it. Definitely look into Nonviolent Communication by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And also the third one would be, which will be the secondary or tertiary reference, might be Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. All those will help you understand to be more influential, more connected. Influential in the sense that you will be more connected with people, you'll be more receptive, you'll be able to resolve conflicts much better, and you'll be able to move the relationships in a much positive direction. What does that do? Well, the effect of that is for you to create a better quality of life for yourself and those around you. As we all know that actually, most people don't know, but we in our community know that the quality of your life is directly related to your relationships. And the quality of your business is directly related to your business relationships. And if those are not going right, which means that you're not having those difficult conversations where the stakes are high and the emotions are strong, and you're avoiding them, then there are challenges there. So I'm going to walk you through a 5-step process for you to think through how you can work through those difficult conversations. And again, introduction, I want you to practice it. This is an ongoing thing. You don't need to be perfect in here. This is an area to approach it in a different way that you might or might not be doing it. So this will help you think through this a little bit better. First of all, remembering this, most people don't have those difficult conversations because this term named in the book, fool's choice. And in their mind, most people, whenever they need to speak up in a meeting, whenever they need to say something that's true or right, that's something that needs to be said, in their mind, there are only 2 options. Tell the truth or lose a friend. It's either or. But that's what they consider fool's choice, that in their mind, they think that if I say something to a friend or a family member or to a business partner, I might lose them. But the reality is, when you speak your mind, when you tell the truth and you do it in a better way, without violence, without staying silent, without being argumentative, then people look at that as wisdom and courage. They tend to respond better, even if it's not in the moment, but long term they tend to respond better. So don't fall for the fool's choice that most people have in their mind, that, oh, if I either tell the truth or I lose a friend or I lose a business partner, and then that telling that truth is very risky for them. They might lose a job, they might lose a friend, they might lose a business partner. So that's not actually in reality true. We want you to become more strategic in that area. So let's start with the first piece of this will be start with heart. And this will be one of the most difficult parts of this. Think about the last argument or conflicting situation you were in, where it was an argument with a spouse or with the business partner or somebody. What happens in those situations? We usually feel offended or attacked, or we feel defensive, one of those things. The thing that gets lost is that, and when we say start with heart, is the motive behind what you're trying to do. What is the intent, the motive behind that conversation? Even if it's a heated conversation, what are you trying to gain out of it? And most people want to give a piece of their mind to others. I've done that many times. Most people do it in many ways. But if you step back and ask yourself, what do I really want out of this conversation? What is the outcome that I want? And another quality of that question might be even better than that, is what do I want out of this conversation right now and long term, and why is that important to me? You can even ask yourself why. I know you can actually set that intention ahead of time and actually remind yourself when you get pulled into different topics in a conversation, when you're trying to share that you're offended or that person is being defensive or whatever the case is. Ask yourself, what am I trying to gain out of this conversation? Am I trying to connect with this person, or am I trying to be right? And most people are trying to be right or win a conversation or win an argument. That doesn't give you the outcome usually that you're looking for. So the outcome might be is that I'm trying to connect with this person. I'm trying to make sure this project gets done. So us arguing about it is not the thing. Us name calling is not the process. Us staying silent is not the process for this project to get done. Us not being strategic is not the process for that. So really know your motive. And usually we either don't have an intention around that in the beginning, or in the process, we lose sight of what our motive was, what our real intention, the outcome we're looking for is. So the first piece is always check in with your motive. What are you trying to do? Even when you're in the middle of it, ask yourself consistently, what am I trying to get out of it? That will pull you out of the short-term conversations that doesn't move anything forward. Second piece is master your stories. Again, this term is from Crucial Conversations, but what that really means is your emotions. And what are emotions connected to? Most people think that emotions are connected to, well, the moment. Actually, they're not. And in most cases, our emotions are connected to our story. And this is where the idea of trauma and other things might come in. We all have collective and personal trauma, not because trauma is a thing. It is a thing that affects us, but what happened was at some point in our life, something happened and we interpreted that story collectively, which becomes our collective trauma, or personally. And that story determines how we feel when somebody affects us in some way. As an example, you're in a conversation with somebody says something in a certain way with a certain tone, with a certain phraseology, and all of a sudden you get triggered. We use that word triggered. Why did you get triggered? And the same scenario, if somebody says to another person, it will have no effect. Or you could have been in a different situation with a different person, you would not be affected by that. So why did you get affected by that? Another way we share this, we say it in normal language in English, oh, well, he or she pushed my buttons. Well, you would have to have those buttons for somebody to push them. Not physical, but metaphorical buttons. And where did those come from? They come from our story. This is why I spend a lot of time in our community trying to get you to understand your own story, which is short-term stories, which means that what is the interpretation in your mind about what's happening when the person is sharing? Some of those understanding yourself and how you're interpreting the thing is very, very important, because a lot of times the thing that affects us is how we're interpreting the other person based on our own experiences rather than the facts of the situation. So we jump to conclusions based on our own story. So that means we're bringing our past into the present. And I want you to think about the last time that might have happened in a conversation or in a difficult situation with a person where somebody said something and it affected you. You either went silent because you interpreted that a certain way without it being a fact. It was just the way you interpreted their way of saying things, their tonality or something like that. Again, this is very difficult. A lot of times it happens so quickly that we think that it's just factual that you feel that way. But remember, every time you feel something, it's connected to your past. It's rarely connected to the present moment. And I don't mean feel in the sense that you feel good about this coffee. I mean feel in the sense of emotions that, oh, this person hurt me, or I feel offended, or I feel disrespected. Well, why did you? And pay attention to that. Is that related to what the person did, or is that related to the interpretation you have? And a couple other things I want to go into quickly here. And again, this is for you guys to pay attention to. This is what's happening when you're having those conversations, or what do you need to do to be prepared for those kind of conversations. So the first one was, as we talked, just to keep everybody on track, the first one was start with your heart, which was your motive. Make sure you know what your outcome is. And second one was master your stories. Pay attention to the stories from your past and your interpretations of other people's actions and thoughts and other things. Stick to facts. If you get pulled, if it gets too emotional for you, it means that you're interpreting, you're concluding too fast. And just that awareness can help you in those moments. The next one is state your path. And it's a framework that's really powerful. You can think through this. What that means is, whenever you're talking, you're not listening or anything. When you're sharing, share the facts. Don't share interpretations of the facts. Don't just share, this is how I feel about this. And if somebody's late on a payment, hey, we noticed that the payments have been late in the past month twice on our system. And then after that, you tell your story, or you share your emotions around this so people understand how you feel around the process. So when a payment is late, we feel concerned about this account, something like that. So you're sharing the feeling, but it's connecting it to the facts. And ask other people's viewpoints. Is this also, have you seen that on your side? Do they see the same facts? Do they notice what you feel? And then talk tentatively and encourage dialogue, which means that don't be so confident as to all the pieces of the puzzle, because we usually have a frame of reference. We come from a lens. Always encourage dialogue. Let people know and understand their viewpoints. Ask their viewpoints. What are they thinking? Are they feeling the same way? Do they understand what you're saying? So state your path, which means share your facts, tell your story, ask viewpoints, talk tentatively, and encourage dialogue. So remember that acronym STATE. That will help you understand that, which means that always separate facts from your emotions, because emotions can get mixed up in facts and we think that that's the reality. It's not. It's just our interpretations of the reality based on our story and what we've interpreted in their story. And then you want to be open to other people's viewpoints. Don't just make it seem like there's no opening for a dialogue. Speak as though you just know your perspective. You want to understand what's going on from them. And always, always encourage that dialogue. So that would be the third point, is state your path. STATE is the acronym. And then the fourth point would be make it psychologically safe for others to speak their mind. This is in your team meetings, in your home, with your kids, wherever you are. Always make it safe for people to share, because remember that first thing that we talked about was the reason why we don't share and other people don't share is because they feel afraid. It's risky for them to share. So you want to make it as safe as possible for them to share things without them being reprimanded, and also be respectful towards them, not attack personally. That's very difficult to do in those situations, because usually when emotions are strong and the stakes are high, people start to finger pointing, and that doesn't work. All it does is create defensiveness the other side, and you feel like they're closed off. You can't do anything. And the last point is move to action. What does that mean? Once you have you understand your motive, you understand the facts, you know your story, you've interpreted correctly, you've gotten their viewpoints, you've shared your stuff, then at the end of all this, what ends up happening is you need to come to an agreement. And this is where amazing negotiators, this is where amazing leaders separate from other people, where leaders tend to create agreements with people. They don't just have random arbitrary expectations based on the stories in their own head or whatever assumptions they have. They actually get people to create an agreement. Sometimes that agreement shows up in the form of an official contract, but sometimes that's just verbally getting people to state the same thing that you're thinking. That means that, hey, this is what I understand based on our conversation, based on what we went through, and acknowledge him. I appreciate you being open to this dialogue, this conversation, because I know it's risky and it's difficult. But here's what I'm thinking moving forward. These are the things that we need to do to improve on the relationship, or improve on how we run this project, or improve on whatever that is. Do you see the same thing? If they say yes, get them to repeat it again. Unless it's the same thing you guys are saying, you're creating an agreement, then there is no point of having any kind of expectation on the other side. So again, those 5 points will help you navigate challenging conversations and conversations that can potentially lead to conflict in a better way. Now, this is a lot like, I'm telling you to do something that takes a lot of practice, of course, because our normal automatic system doesn't encourage this way of thinking and dialoguing. Our normal state is we either go into silence or violence mode. That's because most people around us has modeled that. Doesn't mean that that's our natural state as human beings. That means that we just saw people who didn't know how to deal with conflict, and in our mind, we've modeled that process. We didn't know how to have those difficult conversations, so we did our best. And again, this is an improvement process for all of us, including me. I've gone into conflicts that I've had a difficult time navigating it, but you can always recover really fast as soon as you become open to other people's point of view. As soon as you understand that most of what you're thinking is actually interpretations of what the facts. As soon as you understand your own motive of what do you want out of this situation, short term and long term. Do you want to resolve this? Do you want a connection? Or do you just want to prove your point? Or do you just want to be right in an argument? Or do you just want to get rid of a person? Make it very clear for yourself. And I think when you do this process, when you go through a model like this, it makes it much more likely for you to not only resolve conflicts better, for you to become much more influential, for you to connect better with other people, for you to become open to other people so they can share and feel safe enough to share, whether those people are in your home, in your team, they're your business partners, life partners, they're your children, whoever they might be. I love that. And what I heard there was that you have reassurance, and you show up consistently. You give them reassurance, which gives them confidence that it's okay to make mistakes. Which is what I heard. And also just remember that most people have been reprimanded for mistakes that they've made. In fact, our whole education system and our family systems revolve around punishment. So when they've made a mistake, you punish them. We punish in the forms of grade, in form of grades. We punish in the form of, like, you did something, it has, I'm going to punish you in this way, whether it was implicit or explicit. So most people are afraid because they've lost either respect, they've lost love from somebody, or lost a job or something. So making it, unless it's like an emergency situation where you know that this thing is going to have a big effect, which means you need to be very involved and make it very clear that those are situations. And in most other situations, mistakes are okay as long as they can learn from it. And the way you're framing it, they just need to know that it's okay. You just need to understand your plan. And the other piece is vulnerability from you as a leader. One of the reasons why I always share mistakes on my side is not because I like sharing that, because that's also a way people understand that you're a human being. And because you accept mistakes, you're modeling that process. But you're also sharing that you're learning from those mistakes. So you're modeling an environment of growth in that process. And then finally, I would say creating a culture around you. And that culture will involve a bunch of stuff. The way you talk to them, the way you receive them, the way you connect with them. Your presence will be one of the biggest pieces of that culture. So you will notice things that most other people won't notice. Just like you're noticing that there's something is off, he's being vague. Especially if you're around somebody and there's something is off, you ask them, you call it out. He's like, hey, is everything okay? You seem a little bit upset. Is everything okay? You seem a little bit tense. They know that you care enough. And by the way, most people leave jobs and situations, other things, because they don't give a damn. They don't go through and follow through with saying they don't care. Like they know that there's a lack of care on the other side. But again, definitely encourage you to read the book. We're going to go deeper on this in the group coaching session, because that's this is going to be one of the most important points that usually comes up in these sessions. How can we show up better for our team, for our family, for other people? And just finally, the last point is always giving yourself a grace, because you're a human being yourself. Even though you might be a leader, you also have emotions, you also have trigger points, you also have bad days, all sorts of things. So giving yourself grace, but just acknowledging that when you do have a shitty day on where you didn't handle it as a leader, acknowledge it and say that, hey, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Here's what I would like to move forward and grow in, and proclaiming that. And that's a conscious process. It takes a lot of work. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I for sure need to, now that I'm evolving, and put this on my short list, like the book and the concepts, because this is just one individual. And in my vision, I'm like, okay, well, I need to bring together 10, 20, 30 different individuals, different personalities, different, like working with all these different types of people. Because I feel like I, for one, am a very understanding person, and I'm always putting myself in the other person's shoes. But being able to communicate that I do understand in a way that makes them feel valued is like a skill that kind of goes over my head at the moment. And so I, I'm a lot more aware now of like how necessary that is to get to where I want to be. And thankfully, I've had individuals like this that I can like practice and learn in like a non-stressful environment, so that I just kind of have a good foundation to start with. So yeah, this was extremely beneficial to talk
Yeah.
about.
No, I love this. The way I see it is that you're getting to practice with one or two people now versus 30, 50, 1,000 people that you're going to be managing later. That's very different, because in those cases, you're not going to be managing everybody. So when you're looking at a CEO of a large company, they're not managing everybody, but they're creating a culture within their core team so they're empowering other leaders to be like them. So they empower the leaders, and then those leaders interact with other people in the company in exactly the same way. And so there's a mission there, there's a value system there, there's a vision there, there's a way they model their leadership process that the other side, their core team, the way they look at it is like, okay, I need to model the same thing to the rest. So it builds a culture in that community or in that environment, and that takes time, that takes effort, that takes conscious awareness, and amazing leaders are really good at that. But and on the money side, so a lot of people talk about this in the business side, it's better to lose to experiment with the first few thousand you're going to make than the first few millions you're going to make, because the risks become bigger and bigger as you do this. When you're managing 500 people or 30 people or 40 people, the risks are much bigger than when you're managing one or two people. You have a lot of room for experimentation. This is the time to put the reps in and be conscious and be okay to make mistakes. Later, it's okay as well, but except the wiggle room becomes narrower and narrower as we do this. Thank you for sharing all that. Gizu has shared, this is a sensitive and delicate subject, and I recognize it as a real challenge for me. I plan to read the book Crucial Conversation to improve, as navigating such discussions is a known weakness of mine, and I often find myself approaching them differently. Definitely read the book, and this is going to be one of the more powerful things that we're going to go through in the next year around influence. How do we connect with people? How do we approach people better? How do we deal with conflicts better? Again, this is an ongoing challenge. Even for the author of the book goes into it. He has a couple of tech talks. He's like, he struggles with it every day, but they figured out the research behind it after thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of conversations observed with some of the best leaders. They finally realized there is a path, there is a recipe, there is a formula, but it requires a lot of effort. Again, almost everything in communication with other human beings, it requires internal awareness. You need to work on you before you need to work on other people with you. That's why when people in relationships say, I need to work on us, before you work on us, work on you. The work on us is more of an extension of working on you, which means that we need to be aware. And this is next couple of weeks, we're going to be going deeper in awareness, whether that's awareness in your plans, that's awareness about yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, how you show up, your habits, all that stuff has an impact on your relationships. And again, relationships is one of the core pillars of how you're going to function in life and business as a human being and as a leader. I appreciate you all being here with your busy schedules, and we'll continue this in the next session. Hope you all have an incredible day. Thank you all for being here. Take care. Bye.